Thank you for joining us today for the Volleyball Playoffs 2021, a quick webinar to remind you of the rules and regulations for the playoff games and as we move forward to the state championships. We want to thank you for joining us here today and remind you that if you have questions, please drop us an email at info@taps.biz or give us a call at 254-947-9268, info@taps.biz or 254-947-9268. The volleyball playoffs for 2021. Today is Wednesday, and today is District Certification Day. So if you're the district president, please make sure that you get your district certified so that we can get the brackets updated. We've been having calls most of the day on when will they be updated. Well, we can't update them until we know the final standings. So if you're the district president, please make sure to reach out to info@taps.biz. Kelly should have sent you an email yesterday. Please check back in your email and your spam folder if you're struggling to do that. We've already received several all-district teams. Those forms are being completed and they're coming into us digitally. As we do the all-district teams, there's a couple of things we wanted to point out, some things we wanted to talk about. Starting off with that all-district team selection process, just make sure that the order of selection rank your number one player being your best player. We would advise stopping after number 6 to confirm the order of those selections because we do go from top to bottom. Your first-ranked player will be the first one up on the board when you get to all-state, so it does matter the order in which you put them in. Another thing to remember that has happened in the past and caused people some angst is your superlatives. So if you have newcomer of the year, player of the year, setter of the year, and you don't rank them in your top 12 in that first team, they're not going to be eligible for all-state consideration. So make sure that your superlatives are also included in your rank order. So each team has a specific number for first, second, and honorable mention. The other consideration I would say, honorable mention must be submitted on that form to TAPS. Many years ago, if you've been with TAPS, coaches would go home and they had their opportunity to select their own members of their team for honorable mention and just tell them, hey, you're honorable mention. That doesn't work anymore. So each school, each district is selecting their honorable mention team as well. We don't care how you put them up, but it is a finite number. It's not everybody that didn't get first and second team. I know that sounds a little crass, but it's not quite that way anymore. So all district teams, if you are the one that's responsible for turning those in, please make sure that you put them in rank order, not alphabetical order, not school order, but the rank in which they were selected. And then they will be posted on the TAPS website along with the all-state teams after the all-state selection committee meets, and that's the Monday before Thanksgiving. So again, if you've already submitted your all-district teams, then those documents should be available to district members. Please make sure you look, if you're the one that did it or if you have a concern, make sure that they are in the order that they were chosen. The order that they're ranked is important. And if there is a change, please email us at info@taps.biz. Those selection teams need to be done by the first game, the first by district, at latest the area round. So don't wait till you get into the playoffs and see how far teams go. Those need to be in within the next couple of days if they're not already in. So your all-district teams should be selected. You also need to select your all-state selection meeting representative. You can have one vote per district. You can have more than one person show up, but we would highly encourage you to go ahead and have a backup to be able to go to that Belmead Civic Center. Like I said, that is the Monday before Thanksgiving. If something comes up, illness or something, then you're not represented. It could be difficult to get your teams moved up and along the way. Robert, tell us about the official game ball for this year's competition.
The official game ball is the Wilson K1. Wilson is still our official ball for the remainder of this year. As many of you know, we made an announcement recently. We'll be transitioning next year to Baden, but for this year it will be Wilson, the Wilson K1. Those will be, that picture of the ball you see there on the screen is the ball you will be using if you advance to the Final Four. Those are provided to us by our partner Wilson.
So, home team at your earlier playoffs, you're the ones that are required to provide the game balls. Game ball must be a Wilson K1. Go on down, Will. We're going to jump down to playoff game details. Robert, talk to us a little bit about the playoff dates and the playoff times. There's always some concern about that. Folks are already scheduling those contests, but help them out a little bit with what the rules actually say.
So if you look at playoff dates, playoff times, those kind of issues, as you look at each round of the playoffs and start scheduling your games, when you have questions, go to Section 141, which has some general instructions about playoff game details, and also go to the volleyball rules. That's 191. So 141 and 191, those should be easy to remember. Go there, and those are outlined in great detail. To hit some highlights, just some things to keep in mind with regard to playoff dates. Deadlines for each round of the playoffs. If there's a by-district volleyball date on that TAPS calendar, and there is, that is the date that the game needs to be played, unless both schools involved agree to play it earlier. Not later, but earlier, and that has to be by mutual agreement. If you cannot agree to play it earlier, then it should be played on that date that's on the TAPS calendar. That is your default date unless the schools can agree to play it earlier. Games cannot be played after that deadline. Final Four will be as is noted on the brackets. Those brackets are available on the TAPS website. When we also move from playoff dates to playoff times, the times are set by mutual agreement. If you go to 141 and you look at who is the higher seed with regard to home games or games that might be neutral sites, you'll see in there it says that the higher seed is the home team until the regional round. That would mean in the by-district round and the area round, those first two rounds, the higher seed is home team. Okay. You still, though, have to agree on the time. So if possible, please, please, please give consideration to that visiting team that may be coming from quite a distance. If it cannot be mutually agreed upon, then you would flip a coin. That is how you would resolve a dispute as to when the game can be played. We can assist you with that if you can't work it out among yourselves.
Robert, being the home team, if their home gym that they've played in all year is not available on that date, what does that mean as far as can they move off of that date and go later or whatever? Because we've had that several times. People don't own. They're having to rent a facility, and that facility may or may not be available at a certain day and time. So what does it mean to be the home team when you don't control your own gym?
The home team, when you don't control your own gym, means you are still responsible to host that game. So you may, and in many instances we've had in the past, find another facility. Obviously, you'll want to find something close to you because you're the home team, but you do not have the ability to insist on playing in your gym if your gym happened to not be available by that deadline date. If you could agree to play it earlier, that would be great. If the other school can't accommodate that, then it needs to be played on that date, and you would have to go find another gym. Call our office once again if you have any questions, if y'all can't agree on those details. We can help you work through that.
So, again, game location for by-district and area will be at the higher seed unless you're an equal seed, and then it goes to neutral site. All regional games are neutral site. One question has come up several times over the years. If the home team is the higher seed and you're playing it at home, who bears the cost? Well, you're the home team. You have no cost to travel. You bear the cost of the gym. You bear the cost of all the things that go with hosting a contest and the officials. So all of that comes out of the home team's gate. The split cost is if you come to a neutral site, but one team, if you go neutral site, needs to secure the facility and make sure they get paid. One team needs to pay all the associated bills, and then the opponent would reimburse them for that. So, Robert, I know you've had some experience about that as well, but that is one team needs to step up and pay all the bills and then get paid back by the other team, correct?
That is the best way to handle it for the two teams involved, and certainly for that school and that team that has agreed to host you and the officials to make sure everyone gets paid. Every year we get a call occasionally, hey, we didn't get paid for this. It's usually confusion between the two schools. So in order to avoid that, like Brian mentioned, one school take the lead on making those arrangements, making sure everybody gets paid, and then between our two TAPS schools who participated in the game, reimburse each other as required by the rules.
So, in the TAPS playoffs, Robert, I believe it's section 191, we do require an R1 and R2. We require the up and down and both lines be officials. So, no more using your JV or other folks to call lines. We do require all four officials for these contests. Will, if you'll jump over to the TAPS website, the official pay scale for TAPS, you go to taps.biz, TAPPS.biz. You're going to go over to resources and click on resources. And then you're going to drop down to officials and click on officials. And then we're going to go to pay scales in the green box for 21-22. And then we're going to make one more step, Will, and we're going to drag it down to volleyball, and you will see that the parameters there for how much officials are to be paid. So if you scroll down, Will, we're going to keep putting you to work here. Scroll all the way down where you see playoffs for by district. The minimum amount you would pay is $90, but depending on how far away your officials are coming, it could be up to $145. Then your line judges are getting $70. Your area round, you jump up to $100, and then the quarterfinals, which would actually be our regionals, you're going to wind up paying $110. So just understand that lines are $70 a pop, and as you look at the rest of that, they do escalate depending on how many rings you go out to get there. So the officials are going to be an expense somebody's going to pick up. They do need to be mutually agreed upon. So, Will, if you'll drop down one more, we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Just leave us right there. So selection of officials must be by mutual agreement for both all games, really for by district, area, and regional until you get to us. If you're not going to use the closest chapter, understand that both of you may have to pay more in travel to get those crews. I already had it come up several times in conversation. I'll bring my two, they bring their two, and we're going to flip to see who's up and who's down. Highly recommend not doing that, especially if you get two totally different chapters. You want consistency with the way they've been trained and called. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Just highly recommended that we don't look down that avenue. We'd rather have you get a whole crew from one chapter. So we'll bounce us down another one. Game information. Everything is by mutual agreement. So ticket prices cannot be more than the state Final Four, which is $12 per person. If you are the home team and you don't want to charge, then there's no charge to both teams. If you are going to charge, then it should be the same fee to both. The only TAPS passes allowed are TAPS approved passes, and they must be accepted, but district passes and school passes are no longer accepted to get you in. So if you're charging that, if you choose to not charge a gate and both teams agree, you don't have to charge, but if you do charge, then everybody pays. You must accept the approved passes, which are the TAPS annual pass, the card holder and their family, which includes minor children. TASO officials would get in for free. THS ADA, THS CA, and Texas Girls Association, all those members could get in free. That means if they want to come in and scout, they should be able to come in on those passes for free. Expenses, the home game, again, if you're the home team, you're going to take care of all expenses. Neutral site, you're going to split them. If there's any profit at the end after you've paid all your bills, it should be split 50-50 between the two schools. Another thing that comes up is auxiliary groups, which would be cheerleaders or dancers or whatever, and are they going to be allowed, number one? If they are, where are they going to be located? And if they're allowed to perform, when they can perform. So you need to make sure those are all agreed upon up front. It's not a good deal to have a whole cheerleading squad drive a long way to see a game and then not be able to perform if they thought they were going to be able to prior to the contest. If you're going to broadcast, please make sure it's by mutual agreement and that you're going to share that with the other team. So one team should share a broadcast if you're broadcasting. Mutual agreement, broadcasts are allowed, and you'll go that way. Robert, talk to us a little bit about the COVID-19 protocols that we're going to have in place for this year.
All right. Each school, as we've been doing all year, follow your own protocols with regard to your players and your coaches. If you choose to wear a mask, you're certainly free to do that. If you choose not to, and those are your school's protocols, that's fine as well. However, when we're talking about facilities, remember, the rules of the facility will control with regard to the fans and those people in the stands. So if you're the home team and you have certain COVID protocols, please make sure those are published and you have that discussion with the other school so their fans know what to expect when they get there. If you are using a neutral site, as you look at your options for neutral site, make sure you understand what that site protocols are and that you follow those, okay? If both schools have similar protocols and you're looking for a facility that might have different protocols and you don't want to follow those, that's perfectly fine. Then you would need to look for another neutral site facility that has those similar protocols. That's up to our two schools who are getting together and agreeing upon those details to make sure that all those protocols are published, whatever it is for the facility that you're using for that game. Make sure those protocols are published to both sets of fans so that they know what to expect before they drive and arrive there for the game.
I think that's especially true, Robert, if you've been one of the more conservative schools with more protocols in place, and now you're going to a place that doesn't require masks, and maybe you have been, or vice versa, I guess. But make sure everybody that's coming knows what to expect. We just don't need to show up and find something out. So.
And just remember, follow the same protocols we've been following all year with regard to affirming that for each team, that your coaches, your players, all of your team personnel are COVID good to go for that day. They're not tested positive. They don't have the symptoms. Following your school protocols, make sure, if you're the home team, obviously, you would take the lead on that. Make sure that that's coordinated with the officials and with the visiting team. If it is a neutral site game, one of you take the lead on making sure that happens, and everybody there has the peace of mind of knowing that all those affirmations have been made.
I think at the end of the day, COVID is still here. We've got to be leery of it. And Robert, fortunately and unfortunately, we did have it occur one last time. What would happen if a team has to go into quarantine once we get into the brackets and into bracket play? What's the outcome there?
So we have the same protocol in place that we had last year, and like Brian mentioned, it did catch a few of our schools. What happens once you enter the playoff bracket, if you cannot play a game at that level that you're playing, if you cannot play that game because of COVID issues you have and the protocols that are in place at your school, then you would unfortunately have to beg out of the playoffs at that time. That game would be a forfeit. It would not be a no contest like we've been doing throughout the year. Once we move into a playoff bracket, we have to proceed through the bracket. Unfortunately, if your team does have that happen, we won't be able to wait. We won't be able to reschedule that game. You would have to bow out, and then that other team would advance to the next round.
So kind of same rules as we had last year. We hope it doesn't happen, but we're prepared if it does. So as we get ready to move towards the state championships, that road to the Final Four, we will be back in the Waco area at University High School in West. Those games are being updated on the brackets with their times and their locations. Those will be up shortly if they're not already. We appreciate you all working this year to get us to this point. We look forward to a great championship run, a great bracket play. Do me a favor, if you would, do us a favor. Make sure that you report your scores into Rank 1. Go in just like you have all year. Go into Rank 1 and put your score in there after every playoff round so that we know who's advancing. We can't put your game location, dates, and times for people to see on the bracket if you don't tell us. So we would really appreciate a quick email. Just email it out to us and just say info, I-N-F-O, at taps.biz. Our area game between Team A and Team B will be held at 6 o'clock on this date at this location. We'll get that into the brackets just as soon as we can. So we will have a Final Four webinar for those that qualify for the Final Four. And that will be on November the 15th, so it's a Monday, about 10 days from now. So 1, 2, and 3A, your call will be at 10 a.m., 4, 5, and 6A, your call will be at 11 a.m. So as you start advancing through the playoffs, if you make the Final Four, please make sure you budget some time on November the 15th to be a part of that call so we can go over the facility rules, when, where, why, and how. Everybody will be on the same page. So, again, we appreciate you joining us and watching this today. There's been an email already gone out. There'll be a couple of more. Please pay attention to those as they come out. So contact the TAPS office if questions arise, 254-947-9268 or info, I-N-F-O, at taps.biz. Volleyball 2021 will be at the championships very quickly. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Please contact our office if questions arise.